what are some key self-improvement habits that they should start with? Is it going to the gym first? Is it starting an online business? Is it both? Is it a diet? What would you tell to people that are watching you but haven't started taking any action? Where should they start?
So if I make a video just titled like 5 self-improvement habits that you should start right now, it'll get views, but it isn't the right advice. The more that I actually stick to my own self improvement and do research, particularly in mental health and in healing, I realize like the best way, it's kind of like less clickbaity. So let's assume right now that we have the attention of your viewers and that they're willing to like really listen to this. If I told them, okay, top 7 no fab tips right now, this video will. So I'm kind of depriving you from views, but this is like real value for the boys. So the easiest way for me to explain is, well, before I can tell you the habits that you should get into, we should talk about what your goals are, because then with your goals, we can align the habits. So imagine habits is like level 2. Goals is like, okay, level 1. That should be our first focus. But then before we can even determine your goals, we've got to go with level 0, which is to heal from all of the shit that you've been through, because your goals will be based on that. So for example, let's say right now I ask a young man, what's your goal? And he might tell me like, okay, money and get girls and get the body, which is fair enough. But then if we ignore step 0, he'll go out and do that. If we ask him, why? Why do you want those things? If he's got the confidence, some young men would say, "Oh, because my ex and me and her broke up, and so this is to get back at her." Oh, because my father, and so if I grow the business, then my father will actually respect me because he doesn't really right now. And so I had this conversation with one of my students, and I said to him, like, "Do you think your business is the only way you can improve your relationship to your father?" He said, "No." And I said, "Okay, well, what else could you do? You could write him the letter, you could spend time with him." Then I said, "Okay, also answer this question. Do you think craving like your father's validation is the best way to operate your business? Like your business is just to get a hug from daddy. Is that the best source of desire for your business?" He said, "No." And I said, "What's the best source of it?" And he said, "Well, to help the people that I want to help." So you'd be so surprised. That was such a big insight for him. And imagine if we didn't uncover that. For years, he would have had the goal of business, which is probably most of our goals, which is awesome. But imagine like he had this weird hidden desire, which was the goal of his business was to get like daddy's validation. And I had to kind of split that out of him and say, well, the goal for your business should be to impact the people that you want to help. So the customers, the young men or whatever it is. And that with daddy's validation, like go for a drive with the guy, right? Go and like spend some time and like have a conversation. You think your dad's gonna look at you any differently because you've got like 1,000 subscribers? Like maybe, but like very little, right? It's just gonna be based on daddy's insecurity of like, okay, this my kid's got status now. So the long-winded answer is I really think step 0 of a self-improvement journey should be firstly to heal. I used to say to improve your mental health, and that's quite a easy way to look at it. So to improve your mental health, basically live like a normal, healthy human again, and not like the modern day. So stop staring at screens. Maximum, let's say 1 or 2 hours of screen time per day. You're going outside, you're in nature, you're in sunlight, you're journaling, you're reading, you've made a fire and you're sat next to your loved ones. Because if you do this stuff, even though it sounds weird to say, but if you do that, that's where the real goals will come out. You might just find that your goals in life right now are just based from trauma and insecurity. And this is, that concept, like you've heard this loads, and maybe much of your audience would have, like when you achieve a goal, you don't really feel anything. Life just goes on. That's only if you set like a stupid goal in the first place, right? If you achieve a goal that came genuinely from your heart and not from trauma, when you achieve it, like you are literally the next version of you forever. You're literally permanently like happier, healthier, more fulfilled, more self-actualized. The problem is most people's goals don't actually come from themselves. It comes because the guy who was a little bit more muscular than you is now fucking your ex-girlfriend. So now you're like, oh, okay, muscle mass and money, and these are the things I need now. But that was actually never what you truly wanted. So this masculine advice of like, yeah, just do something, just grind. I think that's certainly better than some guy doing nothing. So I'm not advocating for like sitting around doing nothing and not being productive. If you don't know and this sounds too complex, just fucking go to the gym and make some money and stuff. Okay, fine. But that's like, that's a basic view of it. If you're a bit more of like an intelligent man, it would make sense to me. I think it's logical to say, take some time to think, okay, in what ways am I hurt and damaged and traumatized from childhood, from previous relationships, from pains and experiences? Because that's going to change what you want out of life right now. And it's not really what you want, it's what like your inner child thinks that he wants to try and make him safe. So once you can heal past that through some mental health practices, through like let's say, okay, some of the basic habits, meditation, journaling and stuff, maybe then you want to consider things like breath work to release the emotions. Like trauma is just stored emotions in your body, and so you can release that through things like stretching, exercise, shaking, breath work. When you've healed, that's step zero. Then let's say, okay, you're at a pretty healthy level right now, which honestly I would genuinely think about 90% of humans are stuck at level zero right now. I know that a lot of your audience will probably be thinking, yeah, let's get to step one. You know, he's going to talk about making money real soon. But I highly advise to do step zero. And that should be the goal for a long time. But then at step one, let's say, okay, you've healed for the last year, 2 years, you've done the breath work, meditation, or let's say for somehow you never really had much of a traumatic childhood or whatever, and so you're like a healed, healthy person. Then what goals you should set will be so clear. You won't have to sit around watching a video on like what goals you should set. You'll already know what mission you feel called to, because you'll naturally just like accidentally be doing it. You'll be like spending time every day in the orphanage. And it's like, well, that's clearly your mission then, isn't it? You'll be spending time every day, like studying psychology and wanting to help people with their mental health. You'll be doing that right now and be, well, of course, the goal is going to be to help more people. Maybe you do that through education. Maybe you do that through making a university or something, or through being a coach or becoming a therapist or something. So the answer of like what you should do and what you should start with, it's always super obvious. It's just not obvious when you're riddled with mental illness, when you're watching content every day and you're scrolling. Like the next time you scroll, like pay attention to this. You'll scroll on a reel of a guy who's into running, and your brain will say, "Oh yeah, running. Okay, running's the thing, right?" Then you scroll again, and there's a guy with like a six pack. Okay, running and then getting lean. Yeah, makes sense. And then you scroll, there's a big bulky guy. You're like, "Oh yeah, bulk. Okay, bulk," because then you get bigger and people will respect you, right? It's like it's just you're giving yourself like a mental illness, because there's no there's no quality source of your desire, because you're just so externally motivated. When you have an insecure start to life, which many of us do if we've went through shit in childhood, then we take our goals and desires from these like whimsical, fickle experiences, like, our perception of other people. So the biggest part is just that. Once you've healed that, the goal will come naturally to you. And then honestly, that like you don't even need my videos. It's just like, okay, well, what habits and what traits do you need to achieve the goal? What's like, okay, no BS. Now let's talk practical. Okay, you want to help people with psychology, you want to become a therapist. Let's say you want to become like a mental health podcaster. Well, then what do you need for that? Well, then you need to send out 10 messages or 20 messages a day to like potential guests. You need to book 1 or 2 a week. You start talking, okay, no BS, very specifically, what actions do I need to take to hit the goal of 100,000 subscribers, which encapsulates like 100,000 people helped in my mission. So long answer, biggest part of it is like start at step zero. I think that's the constraint for most people right now.
Now, a lot of these trainings are available for free with all of the templates, AI tools, private feedback for you to be able to implement in your business. And guess what? It's absolutely free. So if you're interested, the link will be down below in the description and you can apply to join there.